Good morning, this is Rabbi Shlomo Torres, Yeshiva Tsama Nafshi, here in Yerushalyim, HaKodesh. We are located in the Beit Knesset of Hanukkah Yeshiva, San Yaakov number 6, not too far from the central bus station. And we're learning Pirkei Avos here, our first year in the morning, about 9 o'clock. And we are involved with the mimer of the Maharal Prague and his commentary Derek Chaim on Pirkei Avos, on the fourth Mishnah in the first parak. So he's explaining basically the difference, which is obvious, between the earlier generations, which were groups of individuals who had the complete Torah at their hands, and they gave it over completely to the next generation, each individual, to the time of what we call the zugos, the pairs, which received, as the Maharal Prague explains, in a dual fashion, rather than a singular fashion, a unified fashion. They received the Kabbalah and transmitted the Kabbalah in a dual fashion, in a diverse tradition, based on two facets of serving Hashem, one based on Ava and one based on Yir, which are complementary and both necessary. But in terms of the Kabbalah, in terms of the message being taught to the next previous generation, was taught diversified rather than unified.
Okay. Get us.
Thank you. Started it up for the snack bar. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, well, maybe start taking a look inside. Let's begin. We're in the middle of that paragraph of the Maharal.
I don't remember where we left off yesterday, I'm afraid.
Yeah, maybe we'll start over here where it says Avos Hazikenim Manavim.
Okay.
Okay, you have to begin reading from that part.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Avos hazikenim v'hanevi'im v'anshe knesset hagadola lo haskir v'shemam.
I mean, those groups of people, the Zakenim, the Nevi'im, and Anshe Knesset, there were no particular names that were mentioned, right? No one was mentioned by name. They were just in terms of the group in which they were associated with. I mean, we knew who the Zakenim were, and then we knew which Nevi'im were we referred to in general, and then we were understanding of those individuals of the Anshe Knesset Gedolah. But they never were mentioned in the Mishnah by specific names.
On the top, Pirusho, Pirushu, she'etzel kol echad ve'echad haytam ha'kavla shel Torah. Therefore, they commented.
Yeah, it was explained, was commentated. The commentary was each and every one had the Kabbalah of the Torah, had the tradition of the transmission that he received of the Torah. Each one had it.
מפני זה היה מוסר שנתנו אנשי כנסת הגדולה בלשון רבים עברו מתונים. And because of this, they, as a plurality, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah turned over the Masorah to the tradition.
Right, they gave over the tradition, right? Therefore, because of this, the message that was given by the Anshe Knesset Gedolah was Balashon Rabim, and Balashon plural.
The Ken Musar Antigonos El.
He's quoting what the mimer of Antigonus was. Also, likewise, Antigonus, even though he was a Yachid, right, he gave his message over in Lashon Rabim. He didn't say don't be like an Evid. He said rather be like a Vadim. He was talking to a group, and he was speaking in Lashon Rabim rather than in Lashon Yochid, which is significant.
The Elu. Musar Hazugot Lashon Yechid. Yehi Betecha, in quotation marks.
Right, that's exactly right, in quotation marks. And in contrast, you see in contrast, the Lashon that the Zubos used was Lashon Yachid. For example, Yehi Beisecha. Not, it's really Bati. It didn't say your house, it says your house. Speaking Lashon Yachid.
Okay.
What do you also Lashon Rabin?
Very big difference. Then the message was given by a group to a group, or it was given by individuals to individuals. It's a whole different attitude whether you're just giving a message to a group, or they're giving, even if you're speaking to a group, but you're giving each one an individual personal message, right? At the time of, from the time onward of Antigonus, after him, the Zugos started giving their message over in a lashon, an expression, phraseology of personal rather than public Masorah. It became a personal Masorah rather than a public Masorah, which is significant. And the Maharal is going to speak about this in details as we get further on.
Mipnei, ki lo timtza achar oto. Since we don't find after it.
Yeah, mipnei ki lo timtza acher oisori. There was none to be found after it.
V'lefikach, and therefore, Amar b'Lashon Rabim, kamo shehu nachshav, it is reckoned as kamo Rabim, like a plurality.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is a little bit difficult, this phrase, the sentence here, mipnei ki lo timtza acher oisori, meaning that when it came to the Zugos, there was not one particular individual, right, that was found after the Zugos. I mean, the Zugos were always going to be speaking to individuals, but it was not going to be one specific individual. Like meaning, for example, the Anshe Knesset Gedola, the transmission went from the Anshe Knesset Gedola to Shimon HaTzadik. From Shimon HaTzadik went to Antigonus, right? From one the group of the Anshe Knesset go to the individual of Shimon HaTzadik, and from the individual of Shimon HaTzadik to the individual of Antigonus. After the transmission stopped in that way, right? Well, he's actually going back to the original point. The original point was Lashon Rabim, right? Because there was no specific individual, so therefore they spoke Lashon Rabim, right? And once it became time for the Zugos that were speaking individually to individuals, then it became Lashon Riyachim.
Okay, press on.
Yeah.
Aval, as lo shelo haya echad mehem levad v'lo haya hakol, lo amar b'lashon rabim, rak b'lashon yachid, kamo shehu haya yachid.
Since the Zugos, the pairs were individuals, right? And they were transferring the Kabbalah to individuals rather than a group as a whole, they spoke in Lashon Yachid.
The me'ata,
Hefresh.
and from now.
Now, meaning at the time of the Zugos, meaning there's a Hefresh Gadol. This is a great difference between. Right, and now there is a great difference.
Okay. במעתה הפרש גדול יש בין אנשי כנסת הגדולה ובין הזוגות. כי אנשי כנסת הגדולה היה להם שם בפני עצמם, before themselves.
Meaning the Anshe Knesset Gedola, Shem B'nei Atzma, that group of that generation had a special name above and beyond all the individuals, right? There were
a collective name.
A collective name. Besides, the group was made of individuals, capable, and they had received the Kabbalah in its entirety, right? The Anshe Knesset Gedola had now been given a general name in and of itself.
And does that mean they were on a higher madrega or something?
Well, they obviously were. We said that at the beginning, because of Yerushalyim, they were our earlier generations. They were not necessarily on a higher madrega, right? But also, it's indicative of the type of tradition that they received. The tradition that they received was a tradition that was unified and given to each individual, right? But they never will mention specifically each person by name, because they had a general overall name such as the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah. So it wasn't necessary to mention each individual by name. Right? When it came rather to transfer to the individuals, now the names became prominent. Right? Meaning Shimon Tzaddik was the remnant of the Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, and Tikkun was not part of a group. He was the leader of his generation, but there was no group that he was associated with, right? In terms of the structure of the Mishnah, that it should be listed as a special individual name in and of itself, like Anshe Knesset HaGedolah, or the Zakanim, or the Nevi'im.
I wonder if it happens in cycles, because we say like Moshe has a name, Yeshua has a name, you know, but then we have the Zakinim and now the Anshe HaGedolah,
Right.
and then we go into but then we see more names again, more individualization, Shammai and Hillel.
Right.
But it's also there's like a transitional period because it's not just Hillel and Shammai, it's like base Hillel, base Shammai, but then it's like dark individual names
Right.
after that, and then
At the time of the Gemara and the Tanoim, so there sometimes you see in the Mishnayos and in the Gemara where they mention Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, Beis Rebbe, but in general it's all individuals. Sometimes you see the Chachamim as a group coming there, as you showed me in the Mishnayos, right? The elders, the Chachamim. But in general, once it's gone to the stage of the Zugos, after the Zugos, which really comes to an end, I think with Hillel and Shammai, then it's all individuals. Yeah. So apparently it looks like a cycle, but I'm not sure. It's not by force. It had to be Moshe Rabbeinu to be mentioned specifically, and then specifically to Yerushua, right? Then there were the groups of the Zakanim, then the Nevi'im, and then Anshe Knesset HaGedolah. Right? I'm not sure it was a cycle.
Could this be comparable to the school of Tosafos? Like we don't usually remember Tosafos by individual names, but that's sort of just their group name they have.
Interesting. When you mentioned about Tosus, yes, Tosus is referred to as a group, whereas as other Rishonim, they're mentioned by name. Why that is, it could have been in a similar way, because many of the Bali Tosus were the grandchildren of Rashi. So maybe could be, since they were closely related with Rashi, maybe they were grouped under that group. I'm not sure.
They fell under the shadow of the greatness of Rashi.
Because Tosus was, let's see what the, you see that some are specifically mentioned, Tosus Rabbeinu Tam, Tosus Rid, you see that some are specifically mentioned. And again, Tosus, Stam Tosus, or Tosus Rabbeinu Tam.
Interesting question.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, you have to see what the origin of the reference Tosus is, why they're given a general name. You see that there's it depends when you're referring to things in terms of historical time periods. You see that they're the Amorim, the Tanoim, the Gaonim. So that's because you're just trying to categorize them in a historical setting, right? But you don't see that the Mishnayos or the Gemara makes a specific reference to groups, like except the Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai. Nur Dai, you see Nur Dai. Nur Dai was referring to the Yeshiva in Nur Dai. Right? Kumdisi, that was referring to the Yeshiva in Kumdisi, in Baltimore. So, you see sometimes that.
Okay. So, and V'gam.
Yes, exactly. We have the place there, we go.
V'gam, hayu rabim v'lo haya kan kabla mecholeket.
Very good. Mecholeket.
Separated?
Diverse, right? It wasn't meaning they were robbing, right? And Khan, that Kabbalah that they had received was not Mecholeket. It was a unified Kabbalah. They received specifically, right? Each individual received everything its entirely specifically.
לפיכך אין סבר כלל שתהא באה הקבלה מאנשי כנסת הגדולה אל הזוגות. And therefore, it is not the, as far as like the reason,
Your logic, it's not logical, Klal, it's not logical at all.
not logical that the Kabbalah should come from the Anshe Knesset Gedola to the Zugot.
Because this was his original question, meaning we have to try and understand why didn't the Kabbalah go directly from the Anshe Knesset Gedola to the Zugos? Why did it have a transitional period of Shimon Tzaddik and Antigonus?
Lekach, כאשר הלכו לעולמם, אנשי כנסת הגדולה, therefore when it went to their world, the world of the Anshe Knesset Gedola.
Well, no, it's a nice way of saying that they passed on after they halku la'olamot.
Like Olam Haba.
Yeah, Olam Haba. When they went Olamam, Anshe Knesset, when they went to their Olam, to their world, meaning, I mean, it's just to take a little bit of diversion for a moment or two, that the real world of a person is in the next world, right? It's the world here is, as the Mishnah Avos itself says, this world is a prosdor, the Olam Haba. This world is just a hallway right before the real world, which is the Trakin world, the action takes place. Thank you, Matisha. So the real world of a person is his world in the world to come.
Rabbi, I have such a hard time with this.
Okay, let's hear.
It's like, then why are we here?
Oh, well, you.
We're not where we're supposed to be, no?
Exactly. We're really not supposed to be here. Now, what does that mean?
Exactly. What does that mean?
When you, I don't know, it was Wednesday. What you were doing? What was you? You were in Germany on
Right.
Wednesday. It was Berlin. Was it Berlin or
No, it was Frankfurt.
Frankfurt.
Ugh, I don't think I breathed the whole time.
Really? What was going on?
I just... What Jew wants to go to Germany?
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, I'll tell you like this. One of my Rebbe's, Shmuel Schechter's itself, he had learned he was born in Montreal, and when he became an Yosem, his mother, I think, sent him to his uncle in Baltimore. So he learned when he was a boy in Baltimore, then went to New York and to YU for a short time, and then went to Europe to learn in the yeshivas in Europe. So he learned in the Mir by Rabbi Yerucham and in Kelm, yeshivas Kelm. So he many times told me like this. If you know anything about Manhattan, so there are two main train stations in Manhattan. One's Pennsylvania Station, and one's Grand Central Station. Right? Grand Central Station. The station was built probably in the mid 1800s or something like that. Maybe a little in the latter 1800s exactly. It's a big, big place. A very vaulted, high ceiling, and it's got the stars on the ceiling. It's a black ceiling, but the stars. With the stars there, so you can feel like you're, out under the wild blue yonder in the nighttime. And, there are places to eat there, they have snack bars, they have benches for people to wait for the trains, they have newsstands, right? You can get drinks and things like this. So, person will walk in there for the first time, look at, wow, the stars here, nice big, airy place, lots of people, lots of things to do and see. So he'll sit himself down on the bench, and he'll try and make a home there. And so maybe after a day or two, a policeman is going to come up to him and say, what are you doing? He says, it's a very nice place here. I've got all my needs. I've got food, there's lavatories, restrooms on the side there. We've got, so
I can live here.
I'm living here. The policeman says, look, besides the fact that you're a loiterer, before I give you a ticket for that, now you have to realize this is a train station, right? People don't come here to live. People are on the move. People want to get from one place to the next. They come to the train station and they move on, right? But the guy tells the cop, he says, but look, I see this guy, he's here every day selling his newspapers. He's selling his sandwiches over there. This guy's mopping the floor. I see the same guy last 2-3 days. Every 10 o'clock, 10:30, he's always mopping the same floor, right on schedule. Right, they're here. They're not going anywhere. cop explains to the guy, he says, look, these guys are workers, right? They're working, this is their living, that's where they work, but they're not going anywhere because this is their place where they work. But all the other people, they can all, most of the people here, you don't see these people, right? They're on their way going and doing things, right? He says, that's this world also, right? This world is only a place where we're in a place where we can accomplish things to get us to where we really have to go, right? So Hashem makes it's a great, big, beautiful world. Like one of my Rebbe's said, like, you know, if the absolute only thing that the Torah wanted us to do was to learn Torah, which he really does in essence, right? We don't have to have color vision. We don't have to see in colors. Black and white's fine to see and learn Torah, right? All you need is black and white. And you'll be able to learn lots of Torah your whole life long and never feel any lack. You don't have to see colors but Hashem made us to see colors, and He made colors in the world. And He made a lot of different pleasures in this world because He wants this world to be pleasurable. Just like Grand Central Station, you know, it's a nice, pleasurable, nice, big wall, you know, stars on the ceiling. What do you think? You ever been to Grand Central Station?
Long time ago.
Long time ago. You remember it?
A little bit. It was very, very large one.
Very large building. If you remember, on the ceiling were the stars. They had the stars on the ceiling. Anyway, the stars on the ceiling. Very large building. So we're just dealing with a certain question that how does the person relate to Olam Hazeh in the relationship Olam Haba? Meaning we understand, because I'll teach us that this world is really only a closed door. It's only a passageway to get to where we really want to go. So the question is, why does HaKodesh make it so nice and there's so many distractions, right? You know, and now you go to these airports, like it makes they've got hotels in the airports, right? Isn't that nice? So I was in London, coming back from London, and they have you can check in for an hour, 2 hours. A guy is transferring, he's got 3-4 hours, transfer. So why he's going to sit on the bench for? He'll just check into a hotel. Shower up, take it, leave the note at the desk, wake me up, I've got to get a plane in 3-4 hours. They'll call him, an hour before the flight, wake him up, he's got a perfect bed, he's got there's a sauna, gym, you want it, you name it, you've got it these days. Like, there's nothing you can't have anywhere. Right? Even here. So why does the HaKodesh will make such a nice world out of this if we're only here temporarily, right? So first of all, it's a test. It's a test. The Chasam Sofer says in his Chedush Torah in the Circus Megillah that HaKodesh Baruch Hu creates this world with many, many, many more pleasures than a person can ever possibly partake with in his life. There are more pleasures in this life than you could ever possibly achieve. It's impossible. You can't eat all the food in that store, right? You can't go to every beach in the world, right? You just can't.
I think you're wrong.
Okay, go ahead.
They're tourists. Just joking. There's tours.
Yeah.
For that specific thing.
That's right. There's tours.
You
fly around the world and you'll stop in the 200 cities.
You
can be there for 2 days. And so, do you know that? There's tours like that.
You can do it, right? You can do it, but you're
right. It's missing.
You're not going to get to every crook and nanny. There's so many things in this world, right? You just can't do it. And certainly just It's amazing. It's amazing what HaKodesh Baruch Hu created. And this is to teach us a lesson, right? The lesson is that if you think you're going to be in this world for pleasure, right? You're making a basic mistake. The pleasures are, we'll talk about, as we say, the pleasure of one for a test, right? Because he said, okay, Chasam Sofer says, what is so if Hashem made a world full of pleasures, and there are more pleasures than we can ever possibly partake in. So what are the pleasures for? So he explains the test to decide which things we're going to partake from, because out of necessity, and which things we have to stay away from, because it's either forbidden or it's not necessary. Right? So this is the reason why we have Bechir. Our Bechir, everyone worries about free will. Free will basically exists in the realm of our choice, whether or not we want to partake in terms of the world's pleasures in a proper way or an improper way. Right? So HaKodesh Baruch Hu made a world full of pleasure, one to test us, and then also because He wants us to enjoy this world, right? By enjoying this world, we also have an opportunity to give praise to HaKodesh Baruch Hu, right? Part of our being here in this world, which is really in truth a preparation for our existence in the next world, which is going to be a world which is completely devoted to praising HaKodesh Baruch Hu, right? So we get a chance to practice here, right? So Hashem gives us good things. He gives us a nice cup of coffee, right? Some nice cake to eat, some nice eggs to eat, an apple or something like that, an orange, and it tastes good. And we should realize that HaKodesh Baruch Hu, in miraculous ways that we can't really even fathom, is producing all these things, right? And when we realize that, we thank HaKodesh Baruch Hu. And that's practice for us to eventually be praising HaKodesh Baruch Hu in the next world, when we get a chance to thank HaKodesh Baruch Hu for the complete, absolute entirety of this whole existence that we're in the middle of, right? So
this is a scrimmage. It's a practice game.
Yeah, right. That's right. Pre-season.
Wow, pre-season. That could have come from Rav Bertram. It's pre-season. Now I understand. Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, the guy says, what do I owe? He goes to his coach says, it's springtime. So the guy says, look, the football season doesn't start till
6 months.
Yeah, what do you want? I'm going. No, 2 weeks from now, everyone report. Right there. Bring your gear, get yourself in shape, right? And they start practicing.
Georgia just had 82,000 people show up for their spring game last weekend.
Okay, go ahead. Like, it's not even the season, right? It's just like, Yeah, you have the army. You have the army also. They do drills, and they do drills all the time. It's yeah. So in a very big way, it's really practice. It's really practice. But great, a good question as usual. Okay, let's go back a little here. Pass that down to our memory over here. Okay. Yeah, let's just back up. Right.
We just read the Kappa Asher Halchu Olamam Anshe Knesset Hagolah, like 8th line from the bottom.
Very good. Right. About 8 lines from the bottom. Yeah, go ahead.
Below Nisha'ar Rak Shimon HaTzadik Shehaya Echad Bilvad, and the only one remaining was Shimon HaTzadik.
Right. The morale is when we learned this earlier that the Mishnah said that Shimon HaTzadik was the Misharshi Anshikin Yisrael. The question was whether it was the absolute one and only remnant, the last remaining member of the Anshikin Yisrael, or there were others with him. So there was a bit of a difference in the commentaries as to whether he was the absolute one and only one. But you see, the Maharal is of the opinion that he was the absolute one and only remnant. He was the last of the Anshikin Yisrael. Okay.
Ba'a HaKabbalah LaAntigonus Shehaya Gam Kain Echad, and the Kabbalah went to Antigonus, who was also like one person.
An individual. He was an individual. Mikol Makam, nevertheless. Right, come on in. Whatever you want. Whatever you prefer.
How are you? Okay. It's good to see you.
Right, so according to the Maharal Mikrav, that Shimon HaTzadik was the one and remaining member of the Anshe Knesset Hagolah, okay, and he passed it on, the Kabbalah, to Antigonus.
Okay. B'chol makom, ein kan Kabbalah b'chulakat
It wasn't.
klal.
Yeah, there was no. It wasn't a diverse Kabbalah. It was a unilateral unified Kabbalah, meaning what came from Shimon HaTzadik went in completely, absolutely to Antinicus, right? Not that it was, as we're going to see now with the Zugos, it's diverse. Meaning there was, as we said, you can really see it's a beautiful motion of the prism, right? You have white light, which is a pure, singular form of light, and with the use of the prism, you can break it up into its various spectral waves, right? So here it was coming from Shimon HaTzadik, right, as it had come from Mishra Rabbeinu all the way down through the Yeshua to the Zakanim to the Nevi'im to Anshei Knesset ago. It came down in its purity, right, without being diffused, right, until Shimon HaTzadik. He gave it completely, absolutely in its unified form to Antigonus. Antigonus, when he now was faced with giving it over to Zugos, to pairs, it had to split. So he had to apply, so to speak, a prism in the transmission of the Kabbalah to the Zugos, because the Zugos are now going to receive it as pairs rather than individual in its perfection, in its entirety. It's going to be now transferred in its perfection, but in a diverse form, in a split form.
Rak ha'efrash, only the difference, ki Shimon HaTzadik haya b'klal Anshei Knesset HaGedola, ve'elu Antigonus lo haya b'klal Anshei Knesset HaGedola. So the only difference was that Shimon HaTzadik was a member of the Anshei Knesset HaGedola, and Antigonus was not.
Good, exactly right. So in terms of the Kabbalah, there was no difference in the Kabbalah. The same Kabbalah that Shimon HaTzadik received, along with all the other members of the Anshei Knesset, was the same Kabbalah that Antigonus received from Shimon HaTzadik. But the only difference was Shimon HaTzadik was part of that group, Anshei Knesset Gedolah. Antigonus came after that group had now passed from this world.
Lo hayakan rak hefrash echad, and there was not now only one difference. Umin Antigonus ba'a Kabbalah lezug.
No, and velo hayakan rak hefresh echad. There was not just. There was only here one difference. Meaning the only difference between Shimon HaTzadik and Antigonus that Shimon HaTzadik was in the Anshei Knesset Gedolah, Antigonus was not. But that was the only. Velo hayakan rak hefresh echad. There was only here only one difference. That difference, whether they were part of the Anshei Knesset or not. Aval umin Antigonus.
V'min Antigonus ba'a HaKabbalah lezug, ve'en kan gam kan rak hefrash echad. There was not only one difference.
Meaning now there was going to be more than one difference. It wasn't just one difference.
Ki Antigonus haya yachid bilvad, ve'hayta etzlo HaKabbalah shel hakol. Antigonus was just one person, but he had with him the Kabbalah of everyone.
Right, meaning the shel hakol, meaning the Kabbalah of in its entirety. I would say the Kabbalah in its entirety. He had the Kabbalah in its entirety. Okay, now we're going to now see that now we're going to shift from the Kabbalah that Antigonus gave to the Zugos.
The Hazugot hayta Kabbalah tem mechuleket lo haya etzel kol echad hakol.
Okay, very important point. Okay, now the Zugos, from the time of the transmission from Antigonus onward, the Zugos, the pairs, were, since they were two people, right, neither of them had the whole Kabbalah individually. Between the two of them, they had it completely, but neither one of the two had a complete Kabbalah.
The me'ata, from this point on, I guess, hakol beseder be'etzel hazugot nisharet hakabbalah ki hazugot hem re'uim lebeit hasheni kamo she'yitba'er hakol beseder. And from now, everything was in order according to the pairs that were remaining. Not really sure what the rest means, honestly.
Okay, very good. So Umiata kol beseder, everything is now is in arrangement. Ve'etzel azugos nisharas, and was now resting with the zugos, the pairs, the rest of the Kabbalah, meaning the continual transmission from one generation to the next was now in the hands of the pairs, the zugos. Because the zugos were befitting for the situation that existed during the time of the Bayis Sheni. Commotion is bar, as will be explained. We say that anything will be in its arrangement. Okay, so that point about the Bayis Sheni, we'll eventually try and get to Mitzvah Shem, but that's where we left off now. That the transmission is now going to be given from zugos to zugos, pairs to pairs.
So not direct, more direct.
It's all direct. It's all direct, and it's complete, but it's not complete by one person to one person. Right? Nothing's changed except the fact that the Kabbalah is now being given through the prism rather than through a direct form of Yeshiva.
So from one person to one person, it's direct.
Correct, right. And this is also direct, but this is it's diffused. It's diffused into two portions. As the Mara, we didn't mention too much about that today, but as he mentioned yesterday, an aspect, a facet of Ava and a facet of Yira. And he's going to go into more details about this. We'll start that tomorrow. Okay.
Big difference.